Hey, it's John from Fine & Home Service. Thanks for joining me. If you're looking at this video, you're likely at the point where you're going to buy a new furnace and you're thinking to yourself, how do I buy a new furnace? I've gone to the grocery store every week. I get a haircut once in a while. I bought a number of things, but a furnace is just something that I'm not very comfortable buying. Either you've never bought one before or it's been a long time since you bought one. There's literally dozens and dozens of companies to choose from, and all have manufacturers that are different from each other. And within those manufacturers, there's literally 6 or 7 different options within that to choose from. So how do you go about deciding how to weed it down to something that makes sense for you, for your family, for your budget, and moving on with a good decision? Okay, there's 3 kinds of furnaces that you're going to want to take a look at when you decide which is best for your family, for your home, for your environment, for your budget. Let's just start off at the very bottom of the rung. This is not to say it's a bad furnace, but it's the furnace with the least options. So think about, going to a restaurant, you're getting the sort of most basic meal, nothing's too complicated. It's called a single stage furnace. And a single stage furnace is really the way we're used to heating our houses back from the time we threw wood on the fire. You throw wood on the fire in the fireplace until the house is at the temperature that you want, and then you just plain don't throw any more wood on. You wait for it to cool down, and then you throw some more wood on. A single stage furnace was common up until about the 1999-2000 era. And basically what we've got is a flame that comes on as big as possible and the fan turning as fast as possible. It blasts the heat out. So if you've ever gone into a home where the furnace just came on and you can feel that warm rush of hot air coming out of the vent, that's a single stage furnace. Not necessarily the best for your budget for your heating, not necessarily the best for your comfort. One of the things with a single stage furnace is if you set the temperature to 70, sure, it gets up to 70, but then it shuts off and the house cools down a couple of degrees. Whoa, then it comes back on and blasts that hot air out again, and it cools down. So what you end up getting is a home where the temperature is not terribly consistent around the thermostat, and as you get further out, it tends to get worse. So certain bedrooms will stay a lot warmer when they should be colder, or a lot colder when they should be warmer. So from a budget standpoint, it's probably at the bottom of the rung in terms of price. So from that perspective, you do want to consider it, but make sure you consider the next ones. Up from the single stage is a 2-stage furnace, and rather than have one flame that comes on, it's actually got 2 settings. The flame typically for most manufacturers will come on at about 70%, and then if it needs more heat will come on at 100%. So the temperature does get up to the temperature, but instead of dropping as low, it just drops a fraction of a couple of degrees, and the house stays at a more comfortable temperature. The furnace, oddly enough, tends to run a little bit longer than a single stage furnace, but oddly enough, because of the fact that it's like turning the burner down on a simmering pot, it'll actually keep it at the temperature that you want. The next furnace, and this is 2015 that we're doing this video, and I suspect in 10 to 15 years from now, this is all people will want. It's kind of like cruise control would have been a generation ago. It was a luxury. Power windows were a luxury. Now I'm not even sure you could buy, or if you could, you would even want a house or a car that has manual windows. But modulating, rather than a single stage or 2 stages of flames, in many cases will have 65 to 70 flame settings. So when the furnace comes on, it comes on at the absolute smallest flame. The fan blows at the very slowest possible speed, and rather than getting rushes of hot air, you just get consistent air moving through, and that does a couple of things. What it does is it spreads the heat up around the house. Rather than the thermostat being satisfied at 70 degrees or whatever you've set it and shutting off, it'll actually run a little bit longer and get heat out to the areas of the house that maybe were a little bit colder. And because the flame is much smaller and the fan speed is much slower, the furnace tends to be a lot quieter than what you're used to. But from a comfort standpoint, that's where the real win is once the house gets up to temperature, it virtually stays, and it really does depend on the manufacturer, but oftentimes within a half a degree of the set point. So if you're thinking of furnaces really just to keep it from the house from freezing, that was fine a generation ago, but now what people want is they want much better comfort control, and the modulating furnace allows you to do it. So there's the 3 lineups. When you're looking at buying a furnace, make sure that you take a clear look at all of those. Check out the prices, and what you'll find is that there's not a huge difference in terms of the cost of the product when you factor in the energy savings over time. Thanks for joining me. I'm John from Fine & Home Service.